Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now in the second hour, it will be all about the various proposals that are currently being made for the budget of 2025-2026. We heard from the Exchequer, the various ministries, even the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, that is the IBC, that clearly stated they require at least 61 billion shillings to efficiently run or conduct the 2027 polls. And of course, we'll be speaking to Kimani Mwangi, political analyst. Also will be joining us is Sami Melia, political analyst, and also Vincent Kimasope, policy and governance specialist, who also will be joining us in just a few. But before I start engaging Mr. Kimani, there are also other events that we're keeping an eye on. Very key is that the president is also currently in Malava celebrating the life of Honorable Malulu Njendi, who passed on just the other day. The president has already arrived at Malava and will be sharing that particular link and various other links that we're keeping an eye on in terms of also the universal health, peaceful processions. The workers under the UHC will be making peaceful processions from that started Green Park Terminus all the way to the Ministry of Health, to the Treasury, and then Parliament as well. Also, we'll be keeping an eye on various parliamentary committees that are currently happening in the Augusta House. We'll be sharing with you, given that they're making proposals ahead of the budget reading that will be presented for the first time in his career. That is John Buddy, the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury. Now, joining us is Kimani Mwangi, a political analyst. Kimani, good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning so much even for the invite. It's been quite some time.
Yes.
Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. And of course, within that time, so many things have unfolded.
Yeah,
and of course,
sure.
The first one we'll talk about is the 2025-2026 financial year.
Yes.
You have heard from various ministries, you've heard from the proposals that have been made by the Treasury. Let me get your general views over it all.
Right. You see, the fact is that the budget estimates this time around, especially the expenditure part of it, has grown. We've started at 4.3
Yes.
T. We are estimating that we shall be able to correct 3.5 from the total revenue put together, around 3.5 trillion. My view has always been that we ran faster than we should. I think the biggest mistake happened with the previous regime. The Kibaki regime tried to work within what it was able to collect from total revenue, ensuring that the budget deficit, which is always the figure between that which you can collect and that which you intend to spend, always ensuring that the budget deficit was to the minimum. That way, the country was able to grow for 10 years with accumulated national debt borrowed at around 1.9 trillion, 10 years. That tells you that the country was not borrowing more than 200 billion yearly in Kibaki's time. All right? That is the net of what remained after you pay some. We were not left with over 200 billion loan on net debt yearly. Now, when Uhuru regime came, that figure rose from 200 billion yearly because Uhuru borrowed around 700 billion yearly. The budget deficit grew very high. We were budgeting, we did not collect, or what we budgeted for was more than even what we collected was less than 2/3 of what we were budgeting for. Now, over 10 years, we were left with a total debt of about 10 T by the time this regime was coming in. Now, while it is true that the regime was forced to keep the budget estimates high because it has to cater for over 1 T, that it has to keep paying the national debt account every year. Now we are at a situation where we are estimating we shall collect 3.5 T. That's a lie. I can tell you KRA will fall short of that target. If it falls short of that target, and we are at 4.3 T in terms of our national budget estimates that we estimate to spend, then our deficit will go high. we will have supplementary budgets in between. And we've also learned that our supplementary budgets are not to cut down on expenditure. They are to increase on expenditure. So what we are likely to do is that in the course of 2025-2026, we shall spend more, we shall collect less, so our deficit will grow, and so will our national debt.
And of course, joining us also an economist, aside from being a policy and governance specialist, Vincent Kimosop. Thank you for joining us this morning.
I appreciate. Good morning.
Good morning as well. The main question that I posed to Kimani, you have heard from the various ministries who are going to Parliament to ask for more money. You have heard from the Exchequer clearly stating what they can do within the financial year. So let me start with the general comments when it comes to the budget outlook that we are set to receive for the 2025-2026. In your view, what does it look like to you?
Always a pleasure to be here and to contribute to the national discourse and conversation. I think if you look at where we have come from, I am looking at the economic trajectory. The growth of our economy, just going back, we are in 2025, go back to 2020. The COVID-19, the issues of the droughts, locusts, and where we are at, we are on a recovery mode, but not a recovery that is, or a growth that is generating the opportunities that are enough, particularly for our youthful population. So I think, whereas, for example, I know we are the growth, particularly in the last quarter. You know, you can see a reduction, but comparably, if you compare our growth figures both in the sub-Saharan Africa and globally, I think only the Indian economy and the Chinese economy would be, in terms of numbers, would be doing far much better. Because also globally, the globe is also recovering, because the COVID-19 was part and parcel of, it was a global issue. Then we had Ukraine, which affected global supply chains. Not very clear how the impact of the conflict in the Middle East region has affected our country. So in summary, what I'm pointing out is that the budget has to speak to things. One, it has to consolidate the gains that and the momentum that we are currently having. As I said, we mainly don't have a growth problem, but an issue of we are growing unequally, as in we are not generating the opportunities enough, particularly to generate employment and for our young people. So consolidating the growth would be critical, opening up opportunities for young people, and also finally would be a management of our debt, because by the time you're doing 1 trillion payments annually to address 1 trillion to address debts, both external and internal, so a lot of resources is leaving the economy, which are actually required to remain. So I think that's how I see generally the budget outlook and the things that must be addressed. Of course, I think being 2025, it's also the transition year. From 2026, I'm sure you, being a media person, the election season will already kick in. And when the noise begins to increase, actors and players within the economy tend to take a shack back to adopt a wait and see approach. So that, for me, is how I look at the budget, and I'm happy my colleague has given the figures. Let's engage.
And of course, it's very good that you've brought up even the debt of this particular country. Let me give you a little bit of figures that was given yesterday by the Controller of Budget as well as the Auditor General. They clearly stated that the Kenya's debt burden could rise following the latest projections by the Exchequer itself, that it could rise to 12 trillion in 2025-2026 financial year. In December 2024, comparing with the last financial year, the debt stood at 10.9 trillion, comprising of 5.05 7 trillion external debt, representing a 46.3%, while 5.868 trillion domestic debt, representing 53.7% of the country's debt. Further, Kenya owe multilateral lenders such as the IMF, World Bank, and the African Development Bank a combination of 2.833 trillion, representing 54.9%, and of course other external lenders like bilateral countries that we are in bilateral relationships, like they represent 21.8% of the debt which is owed to lenders such as China, France, and UAE to the tune of 1.102 trillion. Before I come to you, Vincent, let me start with Kimani. Kimani, you can see the debt trajectory of this particular country. The Exchequer is saying it is set to rise. The Controller of Budget is saying it is set to rise. What is that, or what will be the impact of the country's economy?
You know, it's quite a huge danger because we were at 60% of our GDP, the debt ratio to our GDP. It keeps rising. Now, the danger with it, while it is not such a dangerous thing if the economy is inclined on manufacturing and the industry as the core feeder into the GDP, ours is not. We shifted from being agricultural state, we are more of a logistic state or economy. Now, because if you look at the contribution to the GDP of sectors, you realize that agriculture is no longer the leader. Right? In fact, it is a shame that our biggest foreign exchange earner is remittances from diaspora. And I would think that is what has informed our thinking that we should export as much labor as we can. And by so saying or doing, we're becoming a logistical economy, which is not such a good thing. Now, the danger with this, as my fellow discussant was explaining...
As you explained, but yes. How do you address then the issue of unemployment if there are no jobs in the country and there are others out there?
I agree to some extent that we are left without much option in the short run.
Yes.
What we should be doing is to combine it with a long-term plan to make sure that, for now, the best is to export. Because what do you do when you already have a ready labor market that you have no use for?
Yes.
You give it out to places where it can be made use of, and then you generate income from it. Not a bad idea. We should combine it with a long-term plan or strategy to make sure that in the near future, we should be able to adopt, like every of graduate that comes from our institutions, which can only be through growing of industries and sectors that would heavily employ the youth. There has never been a better sector than the industrial, the manufacturing sector. If we can grow our economy and align it to manufacturing, then we'll be able not only to generate more income, but also to employ more people which will spark macroeconomic activities in the economy and grow it exponentially. But now, the danger of this, our having national debt, that is almost 50% of our debt, is that when it comes to payment, we are talking of over 500 billion yearly that we are paying outside. So that money is not trickling down into the economy. So we are not feeling the effect of 500 billion that has been received by the Treasury. Remember the burden we have of the pending bill. Again, we have held a lot of money. And did you see the structure of the pending bill? Much of it is of suppliers, meaning that suppliers are not people, suppliers are people who bought things and suppliers. So the much money you're holding is money that when it comes back to the economy, much of it goes into
paying the
to grow the economy through trade. Which is why we need to figure out a strategy whether we are going to collateralize these debts and issue them as treasury or as bills and have people buy into them so that we release the money to the economy. We need to figure out. So I think the danger with this, our borrowing, is that it has put us into a trap where we have to keep borrowing. Because think of our wage bill. Think of our recurrent expenditure. the national government has to give county governments around 400 billion yearly. When you put all that together, and this is Tier 1 expenditure we must expend with it, our CFS stands almost at 2 trillion. Now, you know, the Chapter 15 institutions, we have to budget for them first. Then our national debt, it is put in the same kikapu with these institutions and our pensions also. So when we have like almost 2T going to CFS, and then we have other recurrent expenditure, you understand why the country has to keep borrowing. So the only way out of this trap firstly is to seal loopholes through corruption.
Let me say this, I'm speaking because I hope it's a discussion.
Yes, so it's a discussion. Yes.
I think the Kimani, right?
Yes.
I think for me, the plan is in place. I think, Kimani, what I see, the issue is two-pronged. One is faithfulness in execution, effective communication, and onboarding Kenyans to be part of this track. What do I mean? Like, if we can reduce that political dividend, like what popular politics will do, and we get more people understanding, as he is, I've just met him in this show, and you say that he's a fellow economist, of course we'll get to know each other more. The advantage of why it becomes easy to align in terms of thought and engagement is because we are dealing with facts that, hey, you can be able to make a decision. If we become faithful in executing what is on the table, I think we're good. One, the easiest place, jack agriculture. Get everybody who can easily utilize their farm back to production. Then second tier is strengthening value addition. So if you're producing milk, from that 1 liter of milk, when finally you either use it and or you sell it, the farmer should be getting a good return for it. Then what I'm looking at value addition is the roads that ensures that the milk gets to the next depot. If you look at the tea industry, the KTDA model, they have very good aggregation. Not just after the farmer picks their tea, there is a collection center, and then from that collection center, the KTDA framework, transportation, maintenance of the roads, getting the tea to the factory. What does that do? It ensures that there is more value addition from what the farmers produced and their return, and even all the way to their payment. If you look at the level of inconvenience that the farmer has to go to look for their money, with technology they can get to be paid back. If we can strengthen then therefore value addition, so that then we have agriculture that feeds into industry. As you're saying, manufacturing has a higher return. Slowly by slowly, what's going to happen is that we will have more returns on the work, and we begin addressing the issues of productivity. Just look, Kinangop or Nyandarua here. Farmers do very well. They do, the climate is good, they do cabbages, but immediately the cabbage leaves the farm, the road needs to be fixed to be in good condition. And then also the means that they utilize to send. I don't know if you've seen this truck that ferry cabbages. You will see one truck and they're putting cabbages upon cabbages. So what is happening to the cabbages that are, those ones are, you are destroying, and therefore, so you know, I'm trying to make this conversation not as complicated as possible, so that those who are watching us can relate. So that the price of a cabbage that the farmer who sold it in Kinangop, if it is 20 shillings in Kinangop, what's going to happen? The transportation margin between Kinangop to Nairobi, you should be buying it at around 30, at most 35. What does that do? You get to address issues of cost of living, and then more money is availed for people to utilize and to consume in other things. Economics at times can look complicated, but when we break it down in a way that is relatable, and if that happens to each and every sector, what's going to happen? Then we will begin to have an economy that is functioning from the micro level all the way to the macro level. I'll come to the next issue, these issues of pending bills. In addition to dealing with pending bills, both national and county level, we also need to address the issue of cost of credit. Because when the government is borrowing domestically, it's competing with the private sector. And then you have, in economics you call it crowding out. They push the private sector because, a bank will say between lending somebody who is going to risk the money in business and a government that will always be in perpetuity, I'd rather lend the government. And then slowly by slowly, what happens? The private sector is affected. So if we address two things, we pay the pending bills, county and national level, then we address the issue of the cost of credit, then alongside that ensure that the economy, the context of doing business, like there is predictability. We are moving towards, I don't know if you've been listening to the country, we're already beginning as though 2027 is going to be this year. I think, I don't know, maybe we should blame the media who are hyping this. I know I'm in a media station. We need to reduce that noise so that then for the next 3 years, we can focus on production.
And of course, coming back to Kimani, there's another pertinent question here. If they are projecting that the debt will rise to 12 trillion, we will be seeing the cabinet secretary going to parliament and asking them to raise the debt ceiling.
Firstly, the National Assembly ceded that power to the national government to manage, to the Treasury to manage the debt. So the minister doesn't necessarily have to go back to the National Assembly. And as I said it, our national debt, would we had a good structured or a well-structured economy, it is not in the dangerous zones. Even the IMF and the World Bank has said so, that we aren't at that point where we have to be classified as a risk when it comes to borrowing. It will definitely affect us. And the reason is it's because of the way we are doing things as a government. Now, if we can talk of agriculture, as Kimosop is explaining, it is sad that 98% of our agriculture is dependent on rain. It is rain-fed, staggering 98%. It is also very sad that the arable land, the land that we have converted into tilling, is only 11%. Now, if we remained true to what Kenyatta and Moi had started for us, that Kenya should be an agricultural state, if we continued with it, mechanize it, and even build our manufacturing industry around agriculture, today would be having a very robust economy, right? Now, and then the other thing that is greatly affecting us is our corruption nature as a country. Why did Dangote establish in Ethiopia when he wanted to establish in Kenya? You've seen the kind of cement company he's establishing down there. And he had told us that if we allowed him to establish here, he had promised that he would sell us cement at around 450 shillings then. But because we elect ourselves politicians who also have vested interest in the economy, think of like the Kenyatta family, for instance. Any sector of economy, they are the biggest dealers in that sector. Talk of finance.
Cannot ascertain that is allegedly, we cannot ascertain.
No. But you see, these things are factual.
Factual, but
let's even use the word. One of the biggest dealers.
Yes.
For fairness'
Quote the source,
right?
Kimani.
Yes.
This is a factual house. Quote the source.
Let me put it like finance, for instance. It is a known fact that NCBA, which is number 3 biggest bank, is the Kenyatta family are the biggest, one of the biggest shareholders with the Ndegwa family.
That is your
So
view.
That is finance. Talk of milk industry.
Okay.
Brookside control over 75% of the milk industry. So any sector you touch, talk of agricultural sector. Their land, right? It competes to no one. We are not maligning anybody. We are talking of facts. Think of the current president, stakeholding in Amaco Insurance. Hotel industry.
Quote the source.
No, hotel industry.
Okay, quote the source.
You get what I mean? Now, when you have politicians with vested interest in the economy running the state, conflict of interest will always be there. And it is, by the way, if there is a serious discussion that this nation must have, is how conflict of interest from politicians governing this state has affected the growth of our rather very robust economy. Because much of the problems we have and why we have made it very difficult for investors to come and even invest in the country, part of it is because of the vested interest. Right? If I have vested interest in milk industry, I wouldn't allow another company to come and become my fiercest competitor in that industry, so I'll have to frustrate them if conflict of interest takes the center stage. By and large, what we are trying to say is that we have a very stable economy. What we need to do to it is to seal loopholes from where we have money being wasted. Now, when you have Auditor General telling us every now and then, it has become moments of agony when you read the reports from the Auditor General, because every report will have something that injures you inwardly.
When it comes, maybe just
let him finish with.
Oh, sorry.
You get what I mean? So we need to work around how we shall fix the loopholes through which we waste money. The Treasury itself told us we lose 2 billion daily on corruption, right? Association of Manufacturers in Kenya told us, no, it is not. In fact, it was FKE. Told us it is not 2, it is 3. What that implies is that we are losing over 1 trillion. From the 4 we intend to spend, 1 trillion will go into people's pocket. Now, think about it. And this is where all our problems originate from, by the way. Our deficit is less than 1 trillion.
The budget deficit?
The budget deficit is always
800 billion.
less than 1 trillion. The budget, the part of what we call development expenditure is always less than 1 T. Last year it was 780 billion, right? We are stealing more than what we intend to spend on development expenditure. We are stealing more than what we intend to pay out to national debt, or more or less the same amount. So if we are stealing a third of our budget, then you understand where the problem is coming from. If we can seal these loopholes, we could have money set aside to take to the agricultural sector to mechanize it, so that at least we reduce this dependency on rain and put as many farmers on mechanized agriculture for increased production, so that at least even if we could reduce it to around 60% dependency, you can trust me that we would be a net exporter of agriculture in the country.
There is, do you know, I know we are having an economics conversation, eh?
Yes.
But you know, a human being is not just economics. A human being is a sum total of many factors. When you look at the challenges that we are facing as a country, the issue of corruption, negative ethnicity, and the issue of impunity. Those are the 3 maladies that needs to be addressed as a country. I see a mirror of a values problem. We have Article 10(2) of the Constitution that talks about national values, because it is a consequences of a decay deep within. So I think we also need to strengthen some of the institutions, because for you to effectively deal with corruption, Kimani, I always I worked in an anti-corruption organization. You need 4 things. You need very strong political will. And political will is not just looking at the person who occupies the highest office. It is everybody who is in a decision-making position, having the will and the commitment or the wherewithal to be able to do and make, not only do the right thing, do it for the right reason. That's political will, all the way to a headmaster. Because we're hearing money capitation goes to school from the Ministry of Education. Books don't get there. So that one is a decision at the headmaster's level. Then we also need to really address our institutions. When I look at some of our institutions, look for example the EACC. We have multiplicity of players. EACC, DCI. You know, why can't we consolidate some of those things so that we have well coordinated and even empower EACC to be able to do their own prosecution? Because at times this issue of if you investigated and you are sure that this is going to achieve convictions, why don't we empower EACC to be able to carry out the investigations and be able to prosecute? And then we also need to continuously improve our policies. Kimani, the corrupt are usually ahead of the system. They are living tomorrow while the system is speaking about the past. So investing in technology, digitalization. I remember while we used to do annually the Kenya Bribery Index while working for Transparency International, we realized that those institutions that confidently face, digitalize, and provide bold leadership, engage their stakeholders over time, they exited the bribery index. So reduce the level of human interaction, leverage on technology, but also more importantly, address the issue of culture. I'll tell you, colleagues, you very smartly dressed gentlemen, the ill-gotten wealth is celebrated. Look at when it comes to elections. If you come out, you say, I want to contest for certain position, even not questioning how you acquire it. So we have to confront this issue. Why is it that we celebrate ill-gotten wealth? And therefore, why is integrity, which is very expensive, not celebrated in the public square? Because what is celebrated in the public square is actually the mirror of our society is in its leadership. So why is it that our political space tend to attract those who are not doing very well on the integrity radar? Allow me to speak positively instead of that way. If you do those four things, then the issue of corruption will be addressed.
But then you see, my take on corruption is very simple. It is more, there is a scientist who came up with this thing we call the Lucifer's effect. And he says that people are innately evil. There is no place where you will find people who are angels. That is why we jokingly say that angels are not found on earth. So, since it is not an issue of bad people, per se, that we have bad people getting into the politics or even to places of public employment, it is more of a bad barrel, where you put people into a bad system. They will definitely go bad. It is more of like the way you've put it, that if you carry a truck of cabbages in a truck that is not well ventilated, that environment will spoil more cabbage than
the efforts taken.
Yes, than the cabbage, one spoiled cabbage would have damaged in the process. If then it is more of a system issue, what happens is improvement, concerted effort, political goodwill to improve the system. Now, let's even figure out what has happened with Waitito, for instance. So we have a governor who oversaw a process where a county lost over 500 billion. Million, yes, 500 million, yes. But because he got 21 million in kickbacks, so the justice system tells him, let's double what you got, and you pay that. And then we follow somebody else to pay what they stole. But then ARA is holding assets worth almost $1 billion, slightly over $1 billion, belonging to this fella. Now, if law is supposed to serve justice, and also to serve as to make you a lesson from which we should learn, then what lesson did governors learn from Waitito's case? It was a motivation, in my opinion, to steal. Because money is not a big issue to this guy. ARA is already holding his assets that is over $1 billion. And then you tell this guy to pay 50 after a county has lost over 500 million. Why don't we make it more punitive to this person For instance, let's tell this guy, no, okay, we understand you took 23 trillion or million in terms of bribes. We shall not tell you to pay because we know you can pay, but we shall put you on a 12 years jail term without recourse. You are not going to pay any fine. You go serve your 12 years, come back. That is more punitive, and it will discourage corruption more. Now, corruption happens because there is no disenfranchisation of people who are at a higher echelon of leadership.
The traders.
Yes. Now, think of it this way. It has become more lucrative to join politics than to grow your business. I can tell you that for a fact. I graduated from Kenyatta University with a number of people who are in parliament. And I can tell you we've been in business from the time we graduated. And these guys will get elected within a short time. They have like 10 times what you think you have. Because politics is more lucrative. People are not going to politics because they want to serve people. They are going to politics because of chances of making more money and acquiring power with which you have power to do whatever you want and law does not catch up with. It is more of a system issue. Like, is it that those in positions of power don't know what we can do with EACC, like Kimosop is proposing?
They do.
But if you strengthen EACC today, who will EACC start by catching? The corrupt politicians, the corrupt parliamentarians, the corrupt president, the corrupt ministers. So why would those who have powers to decide what EACC can become strengthen it, knowing they will be the first victims of strengthened EACC?
Kimani, why I'm engaging is the joy of when the conversation is. Sorry, I should appreciate that.
Okay, it's okay.
Apologies. You know, Kimani, we should not, because we are in a technical place per se in this conversation. I don't fear to put ideas outside there, because what is going to happen over time when people begin to feel the pinch of lack of service delivery, the issues of corruption, at some point you get to an elasticity point where the members of the public can ask, what can be done to stop this?
They did.
I'm just giving that example of that ability to say, hey, if we are to stop this. I remember in one of the the conversation on getting the country a new constitutional order. Somebody needed to put that idea outside there on the table and says, ladies and gentlemen, the issue is not the individual who is sitting in the office. It is the framework that facilitates the individual, any one person who will get into that office under the current circumstances. The system will facilitate them to do this. So what do we do this? Let us strengthen the laws, the systems, the structures in such a way that they are not oriented towards producing this. And that's why we talked about the Constitution. Is it perfect? No. But the point I'm trying to point out is there will be resistance, but there will come a time, Kimani, where a bad idea has to give way for a better idea on the table. I will tell you this, Kimani, today, when you look at our country, there are conversations we don't get to. Today, we do not talk about the issue of term limits. Everybody knows you're serving as a governor, it's 2 terms maximum. If you're serving as a president, you know, that conversation, there was a time whereby that conversation was not part of our national conversation. And I have pointed out very clearly, we need to address corruption, we need to address the issues of the issue of impunity, we also need to address the issue of negative ethnicity, whereby we celebrate and we are proud of our cultural heritage and diversity, but at the same time, those who mortgage it and weaponize it to destroy the very fabric of society because of short-term interest needs to be exposed. One of the institutions I believe that we also need to address, for example, next time when we are addressing, maybe we need a session to see on these 3 issues, since we already know let me even take up this conversation. If you look at the manifestos of before the election, last 2022, if you looked at the manifesto of Zimio and the manifesto of
Kenya Kwanza,
you would see very clear ideas that mirror the Vision 2030. That is a proud legacy that we were left by the Kibaki's administration, the Vision 2030. What does that tell you? That our problem, therefore, is that issue of faithful execution, using Vision 2030 as a mirror to take the country to the next level. So this issue of corruption, as we strengthen system, as we improve our laws and policies, as we address the issue of leadership and political will, then we also now can confront the issue of our culture and our values. How is it that those who represent a better vision are not able to get to the decision making because of the shallowness of their pockets? That becomes an issue on the table whereby we begin to confront. And when we expose it, Kimani, do you know what happens? I always believe in the issue of what is it, this gentleman, the former president of the US, he says, ask not what your country can do, but what is it that JF Kennedy, what is it that you can do for your country? At this moment, we are very clear. We have itemized the 3 issues that are confronting our country. We know very clearly that if with the wherewithal and the commitment, they can be addressed. The others have done it and have come out of it. I remember the one senior, I think, leader in Singapore. He was interviewed one time. He says, you people in Singapore, are you tending towards communism or are you tending towards capitalism? What works? He says, for us, it is a system that works. And he just gave an example. You know, if it is a black cat, white cat, or a gray cat, the most important thing is that if the cat is catching a mouse, we will go for that cat. So ideas that will produce results that will better our country, so that dreams and aspirations as captured in our national anthem, that plenty be found within our borders, then it behoves us to be able to have this level of conversation. In fact, Kimani, I have to say this.
Yes, I have to ask you a question. We're running out of time. Yes, I need to ask you a question, both of you, given that I can see you've already set your hats, your economic hats, scandal. Now you have put your political analyst hats. Let me ask you this question. Let me ask this question because it's very vital. We're running out of time. Let me start with Kimani before I come to you. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, which is the IBC, came to Parliament, asked Treasury to the tune of 61 billion shillings to conduct the upcoming polls. The amount is 20 billion shillings more than the one they used in 2022, which was around 41 billion. What do you make of that?
It is true. We have to factor in that 5 years ago, or say, because the period in between elections is 5 years, what a billion was 2022 will not be the same in 2027.
Inflation.
So inflation aspect of it demands that you budget for more. Because even what was costing, the cost is not static in the 5 years. But then it is more of an issue of explaining why do you need more than what we had allocated in the previous regime. If you can explain it better, because at the end of the day, all we want is a free, fair and credible election.
Verifiable.
As long as that is what we want, and what you're asking for is justifiable and makes sense, then there is no issue about it.
And to many Kenyans are saying, aside from the value of the shilling itself, they're saying that's expensive.
And most likely the influence of the political class, and again, allow me to blame the media here. You know, the IEBC is a very emotive institution because of the role it plays, because it's the mediator of the will, the popular will of the people, translated in Chapter 1 of the Constitution, that all sovereign power belongs to the people, and then they can delegate that power to then Parliament, and these are the institutions. Then the other thing that also we have seen over time is what Kimani has pointed out, the issue of communication, where communication stops imagination take over. So I think the IBC have a responsibility of just putting this information outside there. This is where this money is going for. This is what it's going to do. These are the things that we have done. And if you know anywhere we can do better, we also welcome ideas. If they can do it there, so that it is, because the money that they are requesting is money that is going to come from the members of the public. I'll tell you this, if people understand, because also it is in the interest of the Kenyan people that their popular will is well mediated by a well-facilitated commission. So I think for me, it's too early to speculate and say it's more or less. As technical people, let's examine the facts, and there are comparable data to look at, there are historical data to even just projection. Then we will be able to get an answer.
Let me give you a minute each, given that we're winding up the topic. We need to pave way for another show. Let me start with you, Kimani.
Right. Budget of the nation is very important. What, as Kibosop is putting it rightly, is that we really need to communicate effectively to the people. We need to let people understand and get a breakdown. There is somebody who said, and this is where maybe we are getting it wrong, that we need to really itemize our budget. In this sense, these figures, these gross figures that we keep talking about, that our current expenditure is 800 billion, we need to break down these 800 billion so that we ask ourselves, what is our wage bill? Then we really need to interrogate these aspects on which we are spending our money. We ask ourselves the wage bill. What is the structure of our wage bill? The technical versus support ratio, have we met it? What is the output of our wage bill? Are we getting value for our money? Or are we having people layabouts in public office and we are paying them expensively when we need to cut down on all this? When we talk of development expenditure, we need to go down, and so that if I want to know what the country is investing in, I can know there is the road from Isiolo to where was it? We need to that I can get somewhere and even tell the stretch we've covered so far, how much we spend on it. That will reduce this deficit we have of trust on the government, because it isn't necessarily that money is being stolen per se. It is more of an issue that people don't get to understand how this money is spent. And as Kimosop is putting it, the moment you stop communicating, then people start imagining things. And the moment that happens, that is when you hear people talk of being figures you know too well as an economist or as a finance expert, that it can't be stolen and we survive. Let me tell you for a fact, we can't steal a third of our budget and survive. That's a lie.
Because even from a personal perspective, if you're earning, if you're looking at you, if you're earning 500,000 and you're saying that
I
wish you good. So you have invited us.
You're spending 200.
Imagine that 200,000 is stolen off your budget. As in, you can see clearly that bullet, what do you call that bullet exit of your budget. We will see either through the house you stay in, or where even the things that you consume. I hope my minute has not started. I was just to,
you have only 1 minute.
1 minute. One is, thanks for, when I was called yesterday to come for this show, I said it is an invitation to engage. I want to really ask, including those who are in key positions in government, to make more deliberate efforts to be able to communicate and engage the Kenyan people. We have a great country. I was looking at some of the things that Kenya is a first. I was looking at Kenya is a benchmark in many areas, and at times we don't get to talk about them because our focus at times is on what is not going right, which is of course being human. One of the ways that we engage and we contribute is by pointing out what is wrong. So I think we need to engage, we need to communicate more, we need to place our client, who is a Kenyan person, at the center and speak in a language that they are able to be relatable, they are able to connect. And the media space is also evolving. It is important that we do both offline and online engagement, so that then when Kenya succeeds, everybody succeeds.
Thank you so much. That is Vincent Kimosope, Policy and Governance Specialist, also an economist. Thank you for joining us as well. Kimani Mwangi, a political analyst, also an economist. Gentlemen, thank you for making time for us this morning. Of course, it is a conversation that will continue for the better part of this week, ahead of the budget reading that will be presented by Treasury Cabinet Secretary, that is John Badi. My name is Abdiaziz Hashim. We need to pave way for Kurunzi Mashinani, upcoming next with Sheila. So don't go too far. That conversation and that particular bulletin is up next. Good morning for now.